I flew to the US last year to do a 3-day public speaking course. I walked into a room, I got mic'd up, I was on camera, and then they had 3 of the journalists there just absolutely fire off questions. They basically manipulated questions to see how I would react and respond, and had a bit of a breakdown, had no idea what I was going to do. One of the hardest things I've done. Welcome back to another episode of the Ben Bergs podcast. I'm Ben, your favorite high school dropout and founder of Collective Shift. Alongside me is Bergs, your favorite MBA and COO of Collective Shift, Australia's leading crypto portfolio insights company providing professional analysis and portfolio strategies for crypto investors like you. We are a unique blend of the established and the self-made, and we're here to break down crypto, business, and personal growth. But we're not just here to talk crap, we're giving you the insights you need to make better investments, build successful businesses, and level up your life. And today we're talking about public speaking. And a year ago, I'd never really spoken in front of anyone. I was absolutely terrified to speak in front of people, introvert at heart, and just didn't want to speak in front of people. And I had an opportunity to do a TEDx talk in September last year on crypto. And I hate, honestly, saying no to opportunities. And this was an absolute massive one. And although I was absolutely shit scared, I agreed to it early last year and started to think about how on earth I was going to deliver this talk. And next week, or when this episode gets released, will probably be this coming Saturday. We're doing probably one of the biggest keynotes I've done at the Australian Crypto Convention in Melbourne. There's looking like going to be a massive sort of crowd there, which I'm super excited about. So today we wanted to talk about some things that I've done to help me take me from being fearful in public and talking in front of others to being able to confidently speak and try and nail these keynotes. Not to say that I get nervous, I still get shit scared, but it's just about managing that and practice. So we're going to go through 7 things that help me. And hopefully, for those of you that have a passion or have a topic that you want to speak about in front of others, this will help you go from where you are now to improving. Now, by no means am I an expert at this, but these are just my lessons that I've learned over the last year to get me to where I am. How are you, Bert?
Good, mate. And I have seen you improve a lot over time. The talk that you gave at EO was absolutely cracking. Not a dry eye in the room, mate. It was really well thought out to see where you actually started. And I remember when you started doing content, and mate, you need to go back and look at that. Like we look back on our first pod and see how far you've actually come. Like it's pretty impressive, mate.
Thanks, man. I think that's like public speaking too. Like I think for me, like public speaking is like, I use the analogy of pushing a rock downhill, right? Starting at the top of the hill, it's hard to get it moving to start with. That flat surface, like you're just really, heaving it to get it going. And once you've had enough repetitions, enough practice, you start to get momentum and confidence, and it starts to roll down the hill, and you just improve from there. The hardest bit is starting. So what I did to begin with, and like you just mentioned, Berg, is actually create content. So I started creating content on social media. This was the best way that I started to learn how to speak, right? Once you get in front of camera, for a lot of people, it's actually really hard to create content because you get nervous. It feels weird. It feels artificial. It feels scripted. But it's a great starting point to start to present a topic or an idea in a way that resonates and makes sense to people. And I find video content is the best way that you can practice without actually speaking in front of a live audience.
Absolutely. I've done this before, like recording yourself to see what you look like, looking at your verbal tics, like all the weird stuff that you don't actually notice. And you're like, oh, I do this, or I've missed this part. It's one of the best ways to do it. I find this really challenging as well because there's no feedback. There's no feedback from the audience. You don't see if they're smiling, if they're laughing, if they're bored, if they're on their phones. But still, it's a very safe way to get better.
Number 2 is investing in your own education. So I actually flew to the US last year to do a 3-day public speaking course. I always love finding experts in different fields to learn from them. I think in life, depending on what you've got more of, time or money, there's kind of 2 routes you can go down. If you've got more time, well then you go and learn it yourself, right? You read books, you spend time learning, you learn from different people online, you watch YouTube videos, and you put the work in. If you've got more money, well then you can expedite that process, and you can go and find someone that's done it before, that's an expert that can consult you and give you more tailored information. So for me, I invest a lot into different education across different parts of my life, and I found this speaking course really helped me not only present, but even put the talk together. You know, the structure of how you put together a public presentation is also just as important. So I learned a lot of lessons from that.
Yeah, and you need, like everyone out there, public speakers aren't born that way. They're made. They go for training. They do lots of talks. They have lots of practice. They have media training, and that's how they get good. You get good by practicing. And yeah, you even did a media course here in Australia, didn't you?
Yeah, I did PR training actually as well. PR, a live training. So that was one of the hardest things I've done in terms of media training. So I was over in Perth. It was a PR company, and basically we went through and I learnt how to deal with difficult questions from the media. It was very uncomfortable, and we did a live run. I walked into a room, I got mic'd up, I was on camera, and then they had three of the journalists there just absolutely fire off questions and made me really feel like, you know, they basically, you know, manipulated questions to see how I would react and respond, and they recorded that, and we went back into the room and watched me on the screen, and it was first one was horrific. You know, like the you know, really good journalists can ask specific questions that make you say things and get you fired up and angry, and how the emotions come out. You know, I was fidgeting my hands, I was like playing with my neck, like all these things that make you look really nervous, and these public cues we walked through and tried to wind out. So yeah, that was a really interesting, intensive way to learn.
After you did that, did you then look at like people on TV and like see how professional they are, and they're like, whoa, like respect like the interviewee, or like, wow, you're getting grilled by someone and you're calm, you're not firing off, you're not biting back, you're like, okay, they've said this, I'll let it go and I'll answer the question in this way.
Yeah, you have so much more respect for people, like especially like politicians and stuff. They're the best, right? I was watching a video the other day. I think it was a guy in New Zealand who's going for their prime minister and position, and like this journalist was trying to really get into him about having this like right wing viewpoints, and he's like sitting back, he's relaxed, he's like eating an apple. He's like, "What right wing viewpoints?" And the journalist's like, "Well, yeah, the ones you've been talking about." He's like, "What? To give me an example. Give me one example." Oh, and like. It went from this journalist thinking he had this like angle of like just, asking these very broad questions to like make him say something, where the responses, he didn't bite. He was so unemotional. He was engaged, but not, not really interested. And he turned it right back on the journalist. And the journalist was the person that was like mumbling and stuffing up and getting sweaty and nervous, and he flipped the whole context of the situation. And I think that that's the ultimate to train professionals.
Yeah, two great examples of this. The first one is Jordan Peterson, one of his first interviews, and he got roasted by this lady. And there was like a meme going around, and like Jordan asked like a lady, she's like, "Oh, would you like to go to a movie?" And she turns around and goes, "Oh, what? Are you saying women can't read?" And that was honestly like the tone of the interview, and he handled it so well. She was out to get him. It's her job to do that. She did a fantastic job. And his just rebuttal and just how he remained calm when it was so uncomfortable was amazing. And the one you just said, that happened to Elon with Twitter. And a guy gets on, and it's a big interview, and he's like, "Oh, what about, the hate speech, this, that, whatever it may be." And Elon's, "Well, do you have an example? Can you show me how this has gotten worse? Just give me one example." And he's like, "But you don't even have one example." Completely flipped it around on him. And if he did have examples and was prepared, then they could have had a discussion about it. But it was masterful to actually see that and see someone take the power back in that relationship.
So investing in your education, number 2, is really important. Number 3 is just taking every opportunity you can get. So it doesn't matter if it's a free opportunity, a paid one, small or large. I've just said yes to absolutely everything. Whether it's speaking on a Twitter Spaces, whether it's, speaking to a group of 3 people, whether it's going to a big event, whatever it is, I've always said yes. And it doesn't matter if it's about your topic or not. So one of the first entry to speaking I had was when I was a basketball referee coach. So I used to coach basketball referees for a number of years. I used to train them back in Tasmania, and that allowed me to start to, work on my presenting skills, and that then eventually helped me present crypto, right? It doesn't need to be the topic that you're in right now, but just taking any opportunity to practice your craft is a great opportunity.
Definitely. Practice.
Next one is get comfortable with the uncomfortable. So studies have found that people are actually more fearful of public speaking than death, believe it or not. And when I used to get up on stage, I always used to get a sickening feeling inside my stomach. I still do. I get pretty bad anxiety when I'm going up and especially a big presentation like the TEDx talk. But just acknowledge it. Like for me, sitting in that uncomfortable feeling, I try and change my perspective rather than just like getting really nervous and getting scared, turning it into like, well, hey, like those feelings are a feeling of uncomfortability, which means you're leveling up. You're in an area that you're not comfortable with, you're not used to, and the more you do this, the more comfortable you'll get. So embracing those fears and learning to breathe through them, and know that if you mess up, it's not the end of the world. Last year at my Oz CryptoCon conference, I prepared this whole speech around like a beginner level entry to crypto. Got there, asked who was in crypto in the crowd. Everyone put their hand up, which meant my presentation was completely like not going to be valuable. Had a bit of a breakdown for about 10 seconds, had no idea what I was going to do, and then and sort of pulled it back and winged it. So like things don't go to plan always, and you're going to stuff up and you're going to make mistakes, but who the hell cares? No one ever remembers.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. No one will remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. And I think I also still get uncomfortable before public speaking. And it's funny because I'll sit there and I'll be like, my stomach feels a bit like, butterflies in the stomach kind of thing. You feel a bit anxious and you're like, I'll just sit back and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Like, why? I've done this so many times. It's absolutely fine. I know it's going to go fine. It's a talk I've given before. And then I just get on stage and bang, I'm on. All that just goes away and let's just deliver. It's up until that point where it's like weird, like uncomfortable and anxiety, even if it's to a group I know well or something I've done before. And I'm like, okay, it's just a part of how my body works. All right, let's go. And then bang, let's go. And you feel so good after it as well. Like taking those, like I had a couple of opportunities and you're just like, just fucking take them. I'm like, yeah, but there's effort and I have to, prepare and I have to do this. You're like, bro, you're going to feel so good. Just do it. I'm like, all right. So I've got a couple coming up in November. It's going to be good.
Next one is record your talk. So if you're doing YouTube videos, Instagram videos, whatever, presentations, talks, watch it again afterwards. It's very uncomfortable, to watch yourself talk, but like look and see how you talk. How do you look on camera? How do you sound? How are your physical movements? What are you doing? Do you look nervous? Are you walking around? Are you wandering? Are you saying ums a lot? Identify your weaknesses, work on improving them, and you'll get consistently better results. If you're not doing that reflection, it's very hard to know where you need to improve unless you have a speaking coach.
You took your TED Talk,
the next piece here, sorry, again.
Yeah, you took your TED Talk very seriously. And I remember you came to Perth 3 or 4 months before your TED Talk and you got mic'd up and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I'm like, no one else has a mic. This is weird. And then you've got a guy videoing you from the back and I'm like, this guy here, man, like he's always in the studio. He's always recording himself. He's always taking photos. Like, what has he got at home? Just like this big shrine to himself with all these like printed out photos, mate. But you were doing it because you wanted to get better. Like your talk was already at like a very high level. You dominated everyone else that spoke that night. I was very, very proud to be a part of Collective Shift and be in your corner. That talk was sensational. And you still wanted to improve from there. And you did that by doing the uncomfortable thing, recording it, but then also reviewing that recording, going through every little thing and just iterating and making it better and better and better.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's like twofold. One, you can review it, but two, you can also use it as content. So you can chop that up. You can use it on socials. Like it's a great way to get a little bit extra value out of that talk. The next bit, which I just mentioned, is actually hiring a speaking coach. So I hired a speaking coach for around my TEDx time to review the talks I was doing, and that actually gave me more specific professional knowledge on my talk. So yeah, that was really, really helpful. And the last one is just to have fun. And this is one that I like to try as much as I can as part of my personality, but just to like, you know, enjoy, have fun, laugh, interact with the crowd. Not only does it make them more engaged, but it makes you feel more relaxed. Like if you get a few laughs in the crowd, I instantly feel at ease. I'm like, hey, cool. Like I'm resonating with this audience. Nothing worse than a dead quiet audience that really don't seem interested or engaged. You can just see them all like yawning on their phone in the audience. Like, yeah, that's when you need to change things up and get them engaged. But yeah, get those reps in. The only way to get better at public speaking, I found, is to actually do it. There's nothing else that can actually, you know, replicate the real thing. So get out there, start doing it. Don't overthink it. Take the free things. Take any opportunities that come your way. Doesn't matter if you're, you know, they're free opportunities, paid opportunities, whatever. Take them, learn, iterate, review yourself, and talk about stuff that you're passionate about. Right? If you know what you're talking about and you're passionate about it and you're knowledgeable, your talk's going to go fine because you can pick it up at any point. What becomes hard is if you're speaking about something you don't know much about, that's where things get a little bit more difficult. So, yeah, hope that helps and get after it.
And this is a core skill that you need in life. It's like you say, it's up there with death. Like people fear it that much, but once you do it, it's pretty easy. And it is such a skill just to be able to get up and give a talk on a moment's notice. Like I am now comfortable enough. If you're like, "Oi, Bergs, go and give a talk about this." Obviously, it has to be a topic I know about. Within the next 5 minutes, I'll get up there and I'll talk. No worries. That would have scared the shit out of me a long time ago. But I'm that comfortable now. And if you think about this, like in your life, if you're in business, you can start off easy. You could have a stand up with your team in the morning. And it's about communication, communicating a vision, where you want to go. That's giving a talk. You can create different looms on what your project is and get distribution. What I did was when I was doing this crazy thing with mobile apps in health and no one wanted a bar of it because it was completely changing the game with the way that we did it, I went around and gave talks to everyone, whether it was one person, a group of people at a meeting, or even board of directors, talked to multiple boards and just kept getting this distribution and speaking about it and honing that craft. You can do things like you can get invited to speak, you can jump on panels, you can go to Toastmasters, just get after it and do it, and you'll be so much more effective in your life. And that'll carry over to just when you're communicating to humans, because when you do a talk, you have to distill everything in your life, everything that's going on, the things that you're working on, into a really honed thing where people can understand what's going on. You're communicating a message and they leave with something, they leave with some value. And once you can do that, you can just do that on the fly in your normal life and it becomes incredibly valuable. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, great. And it also that just like, you know, the ability to influence others in a good way. Like, you know, thinking about ways you can actually deliver a message, deliver a passion of yours, educate people. Like there's no other better platform to do that where you can help a group of people move their lives forward than, you know, delivering your message to a number of people. So you can really change lives through being able to do that well.
It's storytelling, right? And if you read the book Sapiens, that's essentially what it's about. Like that's what differentiates us being able to tell stories, understand previous messages, and then get a group of people together to coordinate through a story that you have. And back when I was working in health, like I was like an IT guy, right? Like I could get up, I could tell people, you know, about this amazing thing that we're doing and how it helps patients, whatever. But if I get a clinician to get up and tell the story, right? They know nothing about the tech, but it links to like the people, how they've helped them, what they've done, the operations they've had, the rehab they've had, that and the outcome they've had, that really connects with people. So it's about that story, getting the right person to do it and telling your story in a specific way.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that's helped you all. Some lessons from my 1 year speaking career. Again, not an expert by any stretch, but I definitely was starting from nothing about a year ago. And, you know, these things certainly have helped me a lot, and hopefully they can help you if you're wanting to get out there and start speaking. So thank you once again, Bergs. As always, if you found this episode valuable, we'd love for you to share it around. If you have a friend, colleague, whatever. And also leave us a review. You can jump on Spotify or podcasts, Apple Podcasts. It really helps us grow the podcast and share the messages and the proper education around crypto business and personal growth. So we'd love for you to give us a honest rating and let us know what you think.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, champions.